Welcome to my channel. My name is Dennis Isong, and today we have Mr. Kingsley in our midst, and he will sharing with us how to choose the right kind of foundation for our house. So before we start, let's lay the foundation. We know that there are different types of foundation. What are the different types of foundation when it comes to building construction? Let us know the foundation first before you now go to
how to choose. When it comes to buildings, usually the first thing that comes to mind is a residential apartment, a residential structure. You know, we're not even talking of the high-rise structures, you know, that needs extra design. But let's just go with the normal kind, you know, maybe for hotels or for residential, strictly residential most of the time. So we usually talk about Raft Foundation, which is the normal kind of foundation that we usually have on dry lands. You know, a dry land. So then we have the pile foundation, which we usually take into consideration when we are trying to work or execute a project on a swampy place or a waterlogged place or a place that the soil capacity is not as hard as we would have wanted it to be. So usually the two major foundations, usually like the Raft Foundation and then the pile foundation, basically. So those are just like two major foundations, basically. The Raft Foundation and the pile foundation. You get? Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. The Raft Foundation is for a dry land.
Usually the Raft Foundation, I can have a dry land. You get? And sometimes we just say, okay, well, this land is dry. We don't need to actually test for the integrity of that particular ground or soil. So we can just say, okay, most of the buildings around here, they are dry, they are on Raft foundations now. Just the foundation that you can just do a little bit of excavation. Let's say about like 2 inches, 3 inches. It depends on the kind of excavation you want to do. Then you're not blind to have a base. You're not blind. That is where you're not going to have your Raft foundation on. So it now depends on the height of the foundation you want. You now say, okay, for this particular place, I don't want it to be too high, or I'm taking into consideration road level or street level before I now decide on the height of that particular place. So all these things are usually, most of the time, they've been incorporated into the design, into the structural design. So usually people just get a place of land and they just jump on it and just say, this land is dry now. Let's just have a Raft foundation here now. There's no need. So at the end of the day, they now start having issues of the property tilting. Let me cite an example quickly. There's this estate where an engineer actually told the client to have a soil test done on that particular space of land. The soil test suggested about 21 meters pile, which is considerably high for just a story building or just a one-floor building, a ground floor and a first floor. But then it is what the results came with. It is what the results suggested. So a lot of the residents around were now saying, you are wasting money. This money, you are wasting money. Why do you want to do piling foundation? For God's sake, what do you need piling foundation for? Everybody in this estate, we're all doing Raft foundation. Even your neighbor on the left side is Raft foundation. The one on the right is Raft foundation. Why are you wasting money? This engineer just wants to waste your money. But the guy stood his ground and made sure that they did the thing according to specification from the result gotten from the soil test. 2 years later, the client called him and said, most of the houses in the estate are tilting, but his own is still as solid as ever as it can be because it is scientifically backed up that it should be that way, as long as you follow the suggested foundation for that particular place. So usually when anybody gets a property, usually on the, most importantly on the island, because you have water on both sides of the island. You have water on this side. For instance, now when we're talking of the Lekki axis. Lekki left, there's water. Lekki right, there's water. Osakpa has water on this side. Ilaso has water on this side. Ikate has water on this side. Ologola, Agungi, they have water on this side. So you're more or less on the island. So most of the time, there are places where you probably might just take eye gauge to just say, okay, I probably will not need a power foundation here. I'll just do a raft foundation because a raft foundation is cheaper. You get. But a power foundation, you have to look for a bedrock. You have to look for where there's stable soil. So when you do a soil test, which is the cone penetration test, you will not discover the depth of proper stability. Then it is from that depth that it gives you the specification on your height of your power foundation. Usually it has to go into the ground to find stable soil where it will land on, where it will stay on, that will carry the weight. So you now bring it up to the surface where you now, to the power caps. That is from where you now construct your beam, where you now get your raft foundation. So usually it is more expensive, but it is better. A lot of people run away from some kind of lands because they feel they don't want to spend money on a power foundation. A lot of people run away from it, but at the end of the day, they are very good lands that you just cannot do without a power foundation. And sometimes, if you're talking of high buildings, maybe a 4-floor building, 5-floor building, it is usually even advisable to even do short piles. But usually the soil test would have given a specification for the structural engineer to follow. That is why for me, if I'm working with a client, the very first thing before design stage, because before design stage, the very first thing is a soil test for that particular land. Then when the soil test result comes out, my architect will probably have done the architectural drawing and the 3D drawing and the floor plans. But before he now gives it to the structural engineer to complete, the structural engineer should have gotten the soil test results where you have suggestions of the kind of foundation that you should have on that particular land. So that is the information with which he uses to design the structure, because it happened in a particular estate in Aja. We had done a design for a 4-bedroom semi-detached duplex. And on this other side, we had like two bedroom flats each, 3. So it's going to be on like ground floor, first floor, second floor. So now we had designed a raft foundation for the place. But later, and I looked at it that there was something I noticed. I noticed this bouncy effect on that particular land. And I told them that before we decide to embark on this project, please, I would love that we should do a soil test for this particular place. After we had sandfilled, we now did a soil test. It now gave a result of 12 meters pile. So that means now the structural engineer had to do a redesigning of that particular structure, because the raft foundation that was originally designed for that project could no longer work for it. So the structural engineer had to design something else to work according to the result gotten from the soil test. So that is why any property you are getting, usually on the island axis, make sure you do a soil test. And it's not even very expensive. Sometimes 120,000, sometimes 150,000. You can do a soil test. Result comes out in a week or thereabouts. So at least you can have 6 points on your land, you know, and then the center point where you do your penetration. So from there, you already are very much aware of the kind of structure you are going to put. It can suggest a short pile. It can suggest a raft foundation. But there are some that it is strictly pile foundation. There are places that we've gone before, we've done soil tests, 18 meters pile, maybe about 36 pile columns. Some 20-something meters pile. There was a place that, that we did the soil test and the man screamed when he saw that the depth of the piling that he's going to do was about 27 meters into the ground. So this thing is going to eat granite, it's going to eat sand, it's going to eat cement, and it's going to eat rod. And now, because it's going into the ground, you might actually be thinking of using a TMT rod, thermomechanical treatment rod, which is more ductile and more durable, and is stronger than the normal local rods. So these are the things that you take in. That's why people run away from pile foundations, because it is usually more expensive. But you are sure that whatever structure you have on it is going to be like that for life. So usually those are the two kinds of foundation, raft and pile. But anything you're getting on the island, make sure you do. If you can buy a plot of land on the island for 15 million, 16, 18, 20 something, 30 something, 45, 60, 92, 100 and something, why can you not do a soil test of 150,000 naira? So that you can design the proper and the right structure for that particular project. So basically, that's just it. The very first thing you do is you do a soil test. And it is from that result you use to design the structure of that project. Basically, that's it.
So if I get you right, what you're saying is, even if I'm doing a bungalow,
if you are doing a bungalow, you might shove it aside. But the technical practice, the real practice, the right practice is that you do a soil test regardless. Even if you're putting a bungalow there, do a soil test so that you have this conviction that you have done the right thing. I mean, we can decide to do, your foundation for a bungalow without a soil test. Probably you just do a base and the raft. You do a base and the raft for stability, because that base doesn't let it tilt. So it makes it stable so that it doesn't tilt. So usually, but for a bungalow, it is not too much of a big deal, but it is just the rightful practice. People should actually imbibe a habit of doing things the right way. Whether it is a bungalow or not, do a soil test, because at the end of the day, you might decide to demolish that place and want to do something else on it. So at least from the beginning, you have the kind of structure. Some people even go as far as, designing a foundation, for a bungalow, but a foundation that can actually still take an extra floor. They might just decide, for now, I don't think I have the money or the strength or the financial capability to have this structure on 2 floors, but I can just have a bungalow. So, but in any case, they design a proper foundation, with taking into consideration the soil test result of that particular land. So usually, even if you're doing a bungalow, you can have a bungalow on a dry land. You can say, okay, this place is dry. What have the people built around you? And if it's a bungalow, you might just not stress yourself. But I feel like just to do things the right way, 150 or 120,000 is not too much to do a test.
Even on a
before
dry
you have
land.
your structure.
Even on a dry land.
Because we've seen dry lands that, what makes a land dry? Because you don't see water on it. You can't tell. I've seen a dry land that hasn't got water, but when the soil test came, it suggested a pile foundation. So these things can be very, very tricky, because the island terrain is very, very tricky. You can't know all these things. You need to know the integrity of the soil. You need to know what is there. You need to know the bearing capacity of that soil, where it has its bearing strength. You need to know where stable soil is. So it's very important to do your soil test, your CPT.
So, and before you do soil test, you have to feel first, right?
Yeah, it depends. It depends, because sometimes I can have a land that is a bit low, in topography. So I want to match it up with speculated height of the road. Maybe, for instance, in an estate, I need to have a structure here. Instead of me to start to design a raft foundation from that particular depth, it is better and financially wise to do a little bit of sand filling to a proper, reasonable level. When you do it to a proper, reasonable level, then you vibrate it, you rammer it with the vibration machine so that you can have a proper compaction. So when you have a proper compaction, you cannot do a soil test, because some of the sand filling must have settled. So you now do a soil test to know the capacity or where it should have stable soil. Then that guides you on your structure. So usually where you have a particular place, if you see that the topography of your place is a bit low, and definitely sometimes you'd have noticed the road height of a particular place, that we are speculating that the road height is going to be on this level. So we can't have a property, because it's just like an estate. There's an estate in Abidjan, GRA. That particular estate, most of the houses inside are almost on the same level with the road. And the road is not yet interlocked. It is only been sandfilled with hard core. It is only been sandfilled with hard core. Now, the same level of most of the compounds is the same level of the hardcore filling. So you don't want a situation whereby you now put interlocked tiles on the road, and then the road is not higher than your compound. So whatever, whenever it rains, it just goes back to your compound or to your house. So usually it is very important to take tactical or analytical decisions when it comes to sand filling and the height of your property. If your house is 500 mm high, or 500, 600, 400 higher than the road, it is still very good. Just have some height higher. If it's 0.5 meters, if it's 0.4 meters, if it's 0.3 meters higher, it is still good. Just let it be higher. So that's just
okay.
it.
Okay. So, in short, the question which I actually wanted to ask as second question, you've already answered it, because now you've explained to us in a layman language that first and first, for you to know the type of foundation to use, it's advisable to do soil tests.
You need to do a soil test.
Whether the area is dry,
whether it's dry or not, especially on the island. And when you want to do high structure, probably you see all these structures where you have like 4 floors of like flats, where you have like 5 floors of like flats. It is very, in fact, you shouldn't even bother. Just do a power foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, for extra strength. Yeah.
Okay. You make reference to something why you were talking. You make reference to soil test.
Yes.
Soil test. So who are those that handle the soil test?
They are not far-fetched. They are a lot of they come to your site with these equipments. So they penetrate the soil. Then at each levels, they gather a particular soil, put it and label it in a nylon. They take it to the laboratory and they perform a test on it. That is from where you now get your results. So they are not very far-fetched. They are around. When you want to do a soil test, you can just contact a surveyor, you can contact an engineer, you can contact a construction project manager. Then they will get a soil test guys for you. And these guys will just take their equipment to your site. Then they penetrate. They take all the sample soils and they take them to the laboratory. In a week, your result is out. So they have a printout of all the details regarding them, now give you a conclusion of what the soil test is going to be like. If I were at the site, I would have quickly shown you a sample of the results, some of the graphical representation, the analytics, and the conclusion part where it suggests the kind of foundation you should do, which is the most important part. So those are the information that the structural engineer will use to now design the foundation that befits your project.
Okay. Then what about those who want to build on water? For those who want to build on water.
When they want to build on water, it is still the same thing. When they want to build on water, it's still piling. You are looking for bedrock. You are looking for a bedrock where there's stable, where you are looking for a stable part of that particular terrain that is going to support your column. So you see all those bridges, all those columns of all those bridges that you see on Third Mainland Water, they have their columns resting on a bedrock. So it is still the same thing that they are going to do. So it's just basically advanced testing, but it's still all pile. It's still all pile columns. Yeah, that's what you do.
So can you give us an average amount cost for a pipe foundation?
Okay, for instance, now let me even use something as a case study. Let me use a project we were supposed to embark on, some months ago. It was supposed to have on one side a 4-bedroom duplex. Then on the other side, 3 units of 2-bedroom flats. And the pile foundation there was 12 meters pile. That is the depth you are going to go to the ground. So that with the raft that is going to be attached to that particular pile, everything was totaling about 11 point something million. So ordinarily, if we were going to go for just a raft foundation, we probably would have spent like maybe 6 point something million. But because of that pile, that means there was an additional 4 point something million. So sometimes maybe for a 3-bedroom duplex, for instance, 2 units of a 3-bedroom duplex, or let's say a 4-bedroom duplex, for instance, raft foundation for that, maybe let's say a foundation that about 1 meters high, or about 0.9 meters high, or about 0.8, let's just say 0.8 to about 1 meters high raft foundation. Let's say it could cost you about maybe 4 point something million or 5 million. Then if you were to now have if you were not to be a pile foundation, you know, you probably would have been maybe let's say you'd be spending close to about maybe 8 million instead of 5 million. So those are some of the things, you know, you spend extra when you do a pile foundation. That is why a lot of people run away from lands where you are most likely going to have a pile foundation.
But the funny truth is this: in Highland, you know, those who are watching this video, some of them are not Lagos based, so yeah, they're not Lagos based. But in Highland, which is Lagos Island Axis, we have more of we have the same type of house, the same type of house. I mean, so the same type of land. When you compare it with mainland, let's say 600 square meter in Island and 600 square meter in mainland. The same kind of development to some extent, but the land in Island will be more expensive.
Yes, than the land in mainland. It's basically infrastructure, you know, and the layout, you know, like the layout on the island.
No, sometimes the infrastructure around might even be the same, but there's this passive value about Island. So the point I'm driving is this: in a nutshell, buying a land or developing a house or building a house in Highland will be more expensive than building a house mainland.
Yes, on the mainland. Yes, that's very true. It's very obvious. It's very obvious because, for instance, but there are some places on the mainland where, trust me, the lands are not cheap. When we're talking about some places in Bagada, Magodo, Ikeja, Maryland. Yes. So they are not cheap at all. Then you even now find some particular lands that are close to popular places like the University of Lagos. You see that road. You see a lot of the lands on that axis are getting, you know, more expensive by the day, because immediately you are completing a structure there, students have rushed it. You know, like single people or single working class people have rushed it. You get, so those are the factors that affect prices of all these things most of the time. And again, you have a lot of dry lands, you know, on the mainland. You have a lot of dry lands on the mainland, so you might not necessarily need to do a pile foundation. But however, sometimes some developers are very, let me say, insane. They know that this place requires some good foundation, but they just want to spend less. So they just want to quickly rush something up, you know, and then you see funny looking buildings all over the mainland. You don't have fine defined walls. You don't have sharp edges. And it's very sad. That is why those are the major reasons why we have this separation between the mainland and the island, because they've thrown standards out the door on the mainland. If I'm doing a flat roof now on a building on the island, and I cannot do a flat roof without doubling it. I'm going to double the flat roof. So I have like at least 8 to 10 years durability. You will not even get leakages. But you see on the mainland, they just want to put anything up there and rush it up and put it up for rent. They just want to rush it up. That's why you have some funny looking walls, funny looking kitchens and bathrooms, and the kind of tiling is so bad. Like the place I'm talking to you for my little apartment. I had it all renovated because I couldn't stand everything that was done in the place. I changed the tiles in the bathroom. I changed the tiles in the kitchen. I remodeled my kitchen to a standard one. I remodeled everywhere. I put POP. I changed the setting of the bathroom because I wanted standard. And that is what mainland developers have done now. Majority of mainland developers have thrown standard out the window, which is very sad. And these are the things that make people just say, the island is better than the mainland. Obviously, you want to do something. Even sometimes we see that some kind of funny looking buildings too are being erected on the island, but it is not as much as we have very funny looking buildings on the mainland.
Yeah, Mr. Kinsley, I think we have to talk about this particular topic, how to choose, what to look for while buying a house. Although that
exactly. I think we need to. So I'm going to highlight that because because before my days of construction project management, I used to be. I'm still actually a realtor. I'm still actually a broker. I still actually go for inspections. You get so. I think I've seen quite a lot of buildings and features, that I think houses should have. When people want to buy homes, because I feel. I think we should leave that for another session.
Another day.
Yes. Let's leave that because I have some things to say, but let's leave that for another session.
Okay, good. Let me ask you this. Let's assume I know that this house I want to build, let's say a one-story building, and I know that I want to use pipe foundation.
Yeah.
And then later I want to increase the maybe later plan now change. Then I want to increase it to like 10, let's say 6 step, or I mean 6-story building, or maybe higher story building. So my foundation was already what I had in mind was for just 1-story building.
You have to bring down that building.
So the point I'm driving is, let's assume that after my soil test, we are told to put, let's say, maybe 10 meters for pipe foundation, which, let's do pipe foundation, but 10 meters deep or whatever the meter deep. So does my soil test determine by the building I want to put on top?
Yes, it's very important.
So
it's very important. Yes, because now we are not talking of reinforcements now and load. Because ordinarily, the kind of rods I'm supposed to use on those columns.
What is even reinforcement in the layman language?
It is, let's just say, the strength to hold. Okay. Like I want to hold something. I want to be able to hold something. What makes me able to hold something? Like I have this book now. I'm carrying the book. So I mean the reinforcement on my hand is what is making me. It has to be capable, has to be right. In calculation, to be able to lift that book up. You get? So when we're talking of buildings or structures, we talk about columns, which in layman language are the pillars that we normally know. You say, this pillar, this house pillar, this pillar is this pillar is that, this pillar is this. So usually that is what determines what is going to hold your structure. So it comes from the ground up. So now, if I want to have if I originally want to put a story building here, this is the kind of foundation I'm going to have here. But if I want to put a 4-story on that place, I cannot have the same design on the foundation. It is still going to be power foundation, but now I'm not thinking of higher rods, maybe 20 mm rods, maybe 16 mm, according to the design of the structure. So it is the structure that now tells me I'm using how many lengths here? I'm using how many bars here on this particular column? Maybe 6 bars of 20 mm rods, maybe 6 bars of 20 mm rods, maybe 6 bars of 20 mm rods, 4 bars of 20 mm rods, 16 mm. So just like that, it is the structure I want to be able to hold. You get that we determine the kind of reinforcement or columns or pillars that I'm going to have to be holding the structure. So if I originally designed a floor, a story building, let's say it's giving me a result of 10 meters pile, and I'm saying, okay, this is what I want to put here. This is it. If I want to do anything else again, there has to be some redesigning.
Okay, if I get you right, if I get you right,
what I want to put.
Yeah, if I get you right, what you're saying is this, that if my soil test is saying that I should just do 10-meter pi, even if I'm putting 10-story building, 20-story building, it doesn't matter.
No, usually for the soil test, it just tells you where there is a bearing capacity most of the time. So I might not necessarily have, I might not know this, but sometimes, you know what? Let me now quickly chip this in. Sometimes the guys from the laboratory can ask, or the testers can ask that, okay, what kind of structure do you want to put here? Okay, 1-story duplex. Okay, then I say, okay, fine. This is what can work here. Maybe 1 meter, 5 meters per, this, that, shallow foundation, deep foundation, and all that. You know, shallow foundation usually is like raft, then deep foundation, we talk of pipe. So now, I can say, okay, the result in this place is telling me that I can have stable soil at a depth of 6 meters. You get? So it is left now for the engineer to say, this is what we want to build a story here. So these are the kind of bars we are going to use at that particular 6 meters depth. You get? But if it is now that I want to put 4 stories, still at that 6 meters depth, I am now going to do a redesigning, you know, with more rods, more high and strong rods that can hold that structure. You get? So it will be a disaster for me to have a story building, for instance, and now say, I want to come back and now add some floors on it. No. There has to be some redesigning of the columns.
So what you're saying, if your soil test is saying that you should do 6 meter, what 6 meter deep, what it means is it will what will now hold the building will be more of the columns.
Yes. Now it is not the design. It's not the structural engineer. It is not the structural engineer that now designs what will hold that particular building. So they will now tell you the specification of rods and the design locking of those rods. So if it's a 2-story, the design is going to be different of that structure. If it's a 4-story building, the design, the number of rods and the kind of rods I'm going to use will be different. Obviously, it will be different. The depth might still be the same, yes. The depth might still be the same. Yeah, exactly. But now it will not be the bulkiness and the diameter of that column. That's the pile that is going to be going inside. Now, according to the structure that you want to put in there.
Okay. Let me ask you this last question.
Okay.
What is your advice for a first-time home builder, a first-timer who want to build his or her house, whether for residential purpose or for commercial purpose?
Please, whenever you are dealing with a contractor, I advise them that if you are dealing with a contractor, make sure you have a project supervisor or a construction project manager on site to make sure that every design according to the structural drawing is followed. You get? So they should make sure that they have a project supervisor to make sure that if I'm saying that 16 mm is going to be used here, 16 mm rods should be used here. Not that the engineer will not say, it's okay to use 12 mm now. Or if I'm saying 20 mm rods will be used here, 20 mm rods should be used there. Not that, let's use 16 and let's reduce the length. Let's use, instead of 4 lengths here, instead of 6 lengths here, we should use 4 lengths to still carry it. No, things should be done the right way and the proper way. So for a first timer who wants to build, first of all, make sure a soil test is done. And before the structural design comes out, the structural engineer has to have that soil test result so as to design the proper and the best foundation for that particular project. So you are rest assured that whatever I'm bringing out here, whatever is here, I will not have sleepless night. I will not just be sleeping one day and I'll be afraid that something might happen, or maybe the building will be tilting or something will happen. No. So for a first time, make sure that your soil test is done. It's not too expensive. I had a client who bought a property in Victory Park for 92 million, but refused to do a soil test of 150,000 naira. So it is very funny. So we come across all kinds of people, but at the end of the day, they do something at the end of the day, and then they now regret that, we should have done this thing, we should have done this, we should have done that, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, people sometimes have correctional mechanism, for faulty kind of foundations sometimes, but it is always very, very difficult, So the best thing is that make sure you have a soil test done, and the structural engineer designs that foundation according to the specification given in the soil test results. Piam, that's it.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Kingsley. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate you. And I believe
anytime, any day.
About it. Yeah, we're going to talk about it.
Definitely, anytime you're ready, just let me know, and then we'll do it.
I'll sure let you know. So thank you very much for
no problem.
Time.
All right.
My name is Dennis Strong, and thank you for coming to my channel to watch this video. It has been very, very interesting having Mr. Kingsley in our show today. So thank you very much. So once again, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and anytime you want any property in Lagos especially, I'm there to help you. My name is Dennis Strong. Once again, Mr. Kingsley, thank you as we check out. Thank you.